Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Nahmadu wa nasalli ala Rasul Kareem. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brothers and sisters, welcome to this series, Journey of Fiqh, number 6. Last time we finished off with an outline and the biography of Imam Hanif rahmatullahi alayhi and the Hanafi school. Today we'll start the Maliki school, an outline of the school and introduction to the Imam, and also an outline of the school and the main personalities of the school of Fiqh or Mazhab. So Imam Malik rahimahullah, his name is Malik ibn Anas ibn Malik bin Abil Amr al-Asbahi. There is a difference in his lineage beyond that. While it doesn't affect him being an Imam and authority in fiqh, but he was a Qahtani, meaning from the clan of Qahtan. Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi, he was born in 93 after Hijrah, and he passed away in 179 after Hijrah. And it's said that at the time of his death, he said Shahada. He said the Shahada, and there's a riwayah that he said, Lillahi al-amru min qablun ba'd, that to Allah belongs all matters before and afterwards. The Imam was an Imam, as I mentioned last week. These Imams, the early Imams, they were Imams of fiqh, of jurisprudence and great intellect, but also they were Imams of ibadah as well. So Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi's sister was asked about the Imam's routine at home, and she said the Mus'haf and Tilawat. The Mus'haf, the Quran, a copy of the Quran, and recitation Tilawat of the Quran. His routine was characterized at home, was of deep attachment to the Quran, that he was always reading the Quran or making Tilawat, reciting the Quran. And these Imams, because they had great fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a characteristic of the early Imams. And as a saying is that the Ra'sul ilm makhafat Allah, that the head of or the source of knowledge is the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they were known for their extreme and high fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that was drove them, and that's what characterized them, and that's what their identity was, the fear of Allah. They internally, they trembled with the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it wasn't just a label, they were alim on the outside, a title given, but actually they lived by it. Ibn Wahab said, if I could fill volumes from the statement of Imam Malik, I don't know, la adri, I would have done so. So this was, in the early Imams, they didn't just answer questions. They had so much fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that majority of their answer was actually, I don't know. And this is something that is, in our time, it's actually lacking. They said 40 questions. A man came from Iraq specifically to ask questions from Imam Malik. He asked 40 questions, and 36 of the questions he said, I don't know. I don't know the answer to. Despite in that time to travel thousands of kilometers over land, through horse, a camel and so forth. But Imam Malik rahmullah did not feel any pressure that he has to provide, let alone someone calls into your TV show, Q&A TV show. He did not feel that urgency to do something wrong by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to answer something. And that's Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi. And this should be for the seeker of knowledge, for the talib al-ilm. This should be like a standard, and their tarbiyah should be done on this. The Shaykh Aamir Bahjat in the Arabic, which I'm doing a translation of, he should be like a wird or tasbih of this talib al-ilm, that he should learn how to say, I don't know. It should be something that he comes off easy off his tongue, that he knows how to say, I don't know, or she says, I don't know. In many masail where Hazrat Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab would not answer himself, one of the greatest fuqaha of this ummah, Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, he would collect all the Sahaba of Badr, the Sahaba participate in Badr, and then make a decision jointly with them. Many of those issues that he used to discuss with them today, just without even, self-doubting or anything like that, people just jump and actually answer the question. And many people, they say today, I feel like I don't think it should be, I don't think it's like this. What has that got to do with the deen? Your feelings, or I don't think this is halal, or I think, this should be right. Should be right. As in Australia we say, should be right, mate. It should be okay. That's lying against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a serious crime in Sharia. that the person who lies against Allah, it takes a person out of Islam. A person who talks in the matters of deen. And that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, that those who lie against Allah, that Allah will blacken or darken their faces in the day of judgment. So this is something that, even Imam Ahmad rahmatullahi find in hundreds of places where he was asked for an answer, a fatwa, and hundreds of places you see Imam Ahmad rahmatullahi alayhi, the person who knew 1 million hadiths, in a given masala he probably knows 100, 200 hadiths. But he wasn't sure to form a final opinion and what fatwa to give. And he was out of extreme care that he would not answer. He would just say, I don't know. There's hundreds of occasions ulama have recorded where he said, I don't know, on a matter that he probably has hundreds of hadiths at his disposal before him. So we are, Allah protect us. It's an era of extreme carelessness. Therefore, it is more important in this time that tarbiyah of a student knowledge is done, their training is done on how to say. The Shaykh was quoting one of the other Shaykhs in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where the previous Mufti of the country, many years ago, that Mufti Muhammad Ibrahim, he said that sometimes a masala was asked and the students were before him. And despite being the Mufti of the country in the early years, he used to say, I don't know, in front of his students. So the students learn how to say, I don't know. There's nothing wrong. You're a Mufti of the country, you're a Mufti of the madrasa, you're a Mufti, you have a Imam of Masjid. There's nothing wrong in saying, I don't know. Therefore, this is it's actually a type of, it's part of the ilm is also to learn the manners of ilm. And one of the biggest manners of ilm is to know when to say, I don't know. So therefore we don't say anything, make a mistake, and then we have to retract it later on, and we lie against Allah. Even if you get it right, it's actually a sin to do that. To give your own opinion, even if you get it right, it matches with it, it's actually a sin. Even if the person gets it right, he's still committed a sin and has done something wrong that is in deen. People used to come and study from the Imams in the past. They used to study adab, and they used to study ilm. It said that Imam Ahmad rahmatullah in his majlis were 5,000. 500 were recording the hadith, meaning they were studying there, they were actually in lesson, they were taking notes. He said 5,000 was there studying him. They actually came to observe him, to his mannerisms and the way he was. What does a person who prays, 400, 600 rakats a day, and what is a person who knows 1 million hadiths? How is he? So they actually came to study, who has internalized the Sharia and in every fiber of his being. What is it? So 5,000 came to actually observe him and study his mannerisms and the way his fear of Allah and so forth. So in the lineage of ilm, it says that the Prophet ﷺ prepared Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, that the most similar person to Rasulullah ﷺ was Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu. And then Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu prepared Alqamah, the tabi'i, that he was the most similar to Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu. And then Alqamah, for his student Ibrahim al-Nakha'i rahimahullah, that he prepared him, that he was the most similar to Alqamah. And the most similar to Ibrahim was Sufyan al-Thawri. I mean, they had many students, but he's the most similar to Ibrahim al-Nakha'i. The one who resembled him the most in his ilm and mannerisms and so forth was Sufyan al-Thawri. And the most similar to Sufyan al-Thawri was Waki' bin Jarrah. Waki' bin Jarrah was his teacher Imam Shafi, Imam Ahmad and others. So Waki' ibn Jarrah, he was the most similar to Sufyan al-Thawri. I mean, each one of these is a giant. Sufyan al-Thawri, Waki' bin Jarrah, Ibrahim Nakhi, Alqamah ibn Mas'ud. But this is a lineage. This is the most noblest lineage, in ilm, one of the most noblest lineages in resemblance to their teachers and mannerisms and so forth that they've taken from their teachers. And the most similar to Imam Waki' ibn Jarrah was Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahmatullah alayh. And the most similar to Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahmatullah alayh was Imam Abu Dawood as-Sijistani rahmatullah alayh. So Imam Dawood rahmatullah alayh, famous for his Sunan, hadith collection, and he was the most similar to his teacher Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahmatullah alayh. And Waki' bin Jarrah was most similar to Imam Ahmad, was most similar to Waki', and Waki' was Sufyan, and then Ibrahim Alqamah ibn Mas'ud, then to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So these are some of the is a lineage or the link in adab. In ilm, there's along with it, one is the intellect is required, but also mannerism required. And also the point of mentioning all this is that we know that these people, that they know when to say they don't know. And they had fear of Allah. Sometimes they might know so much, but they don't give a final opinion on an issue. And they will say, I don't know, la adri, I fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm not going to answer that question, or I'm not going to entertain an answer. The Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi's taqwa was such that Ibn Mahdi mentioned that I didn't see anyone with more awe, hayba, perfect intellect, and more taqwa than Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi. I mean, you're talking in the era, there's imams everywhere. These people used to travel through Iraq and Basra and Sham and all over the Muslim world and meet. So he goes, but I didn't see, and everybody used to come to Medina because he's in Medina Muwarrah. So everyone used to come for Hajj and all the imams used to come and so forth. But he said, I didn't see anyone more awe, hayba. And this is well known about Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi, that his majlis was unique in the sense that he was teaching Masjid Nabawi, where he used to sit where Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu used to sit. And he said he used to take a shower, a ghusl, and oil his hair, put on a new set of clothes. His friend used to give him a new set of clothes, gave him 360 sets of clothes, and he used to put it on once, and then in the evening he used to give it away in sadaqah. He was going to teach hadith in the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he used to oil his hair, and you could say with great style, he used to come and deliver his dars in Masjid Nabawi. And such awe was of the masjid that they would not ask any questions, that they could not speak in his majlis, because he had so much awe, so much hayba himself, and the way he treated the masjid, the majlis. And the hadith of Rasulullah, he did not make any sudden movements or useless movements. Because he had so much awe, then the audience also, they reciprocated that, and they had great awe for the majlis and so forth. And he also had the perfect intellect, which goes without saying, because he's one of the imams of the 4 schools. And he had no one had more taqwa, fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, than Imam Malik. In regards to his knowledge and intelligence, there's a hadith that people set out on long camel journeys in seeking knowledge. There's a hadith that people set out long camel journeys in seeking ilm. They will not find someone more knowledgeable than the alim of Medina. And Ibn Uyayna rahimahullah, Sufyan ibn Uyayna rahimahullah, said that this is Malik. This is Imam Malik. This hadith can only fit. There are different other people mention other people, but he said I believe that this can only fit Imam Malik rahimahullah. People from all over the world, they come to Imam Malik. So Ibn Uyayna said this is Malik, and he said there's no one exists on the earth, on the face of the earth, like Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi. He was ready for fatwa. He was ready as a mufti at the age of 21. But he said, I did not issue any fatwa until 70 imams of Medina, the ulama of Medina, 7 muftis and jurists of Medina, fuqaha of Medina, that they gave shahada, they bore witness that he is someone befitting to give fatwa. So he got approval of 70 of the imams, the most senior ulama of Medina Munawwara in his time, and they bore witness that. So at the age of 21, he was actually he used to issue fatwa. Imam Shafi rahmatullah said, Imam Shafi rahmatullah, because he was a student Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi, he said, when the ulama are mentioned, Malik is a star. So he's a najm, he's a star. As we use that expression today as well, like someone is a superstar, meaning he stands out from he shines brightly out of everybody else, the rest of society and community. So Imam Shafi rahmatullah said, when the ulama are mentioned, Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi is a star. As for the school, next slide, Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi, this is a breakdown similar to the Hanafi school. The foundation establishment, of course, starts with the Imam. Imam Malik rahmatullah is unique that he wrote a book, Al-Muwatta, on fiqh and hadith. So, these Imams, they knew all the fields of Sharia, but he had left a book which is taught. Alhamdulillah, I had a chance to study it in madrasa with my ustaz. So it's a book on fiqh and it's a book on hadith. The fiqh of Imam Malik is in there. Also, it's a collection of hadith. Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayhi contains the fiqh of the people of Medina. And Imam Shafi rahmatullah, before Bukhari Sharif was written, which was written after Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayhi, but he said that after the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most authentic book in Islam is the Muwatta of Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi. In this stage also, there are students of Imam Malik rahmatullah, Ibn Qasim, Asr bin Furat, Sahnun, and their works together are combined are called the Mudawwana. And this book is like the reference, foundational reference of the Madhab, because it records all the views of Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi, and all ulama afterwards they refer to this book. Sahnun, Sahnun, great Imam. Someone came to him once, one of the three that are the contributors to the Mudawwana, said that, asked him a question and said, "You are antalaha, you are for this matter. You can answer this masala. Like you're such great." He said, "I will not present myself to the fire of Jahannam because of your words." The person tried to, boost him up. You're the man. You can do this. You'll be able to answer this question. He said, "I will not. I will not present myself to the fire. I will not present myself to the fire of Jahannam because of your words, your encouragement. These encouragements may be nice. These words are nice, but they're not enough for me to change a view or to force a masala or to, like the social pressure or the peer pressure or community pressure is not a factor in deciding what's right and wrong. Because if you rush people, especially in a fiqh matter, people make, in anything in life, we make mistakes. So he said that this is not sufficient enough for me, that I present myself to the fire of Jahannam. Your words are not, they're not going to do that. So on one side, there is a responsibility of teaching people and giving solutions to people so they can practice the deen. But the more important than that is that we get it right. Make sure that it is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and that we don't make a mistake in regards to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The next stage is the growth of, so that stage was until 282 after Hijrah. And then there's a growth expansion stage which starts at the end of the previous stage until 616 after Hijrah. The first personality is Ibn Abi Zayd. He wrote the Risala, and he was from Qayrouan, which is North Africa. Qadi Abdul Wahhab, he wrote Talqeen. He was from Iraq. He was a judge, and he wrote many a lot of poetry is attributed to him, a lot of ghazal. Shaykh Aamir Bahjat, when he was saying this, not appropriate to probably in the majlis of ilm and ulama to quote these ghazals, like they love romantic poetry. It's not befitting the majlis. And he also said that there's a poem of him, he had to leave Baghdad because he was so poor. And he said, and in the poem he said, Baghdad seems to be like a place only for rich people. And he said, I am like the Quran in the Zindiq's house. The murtad, or the person who become, imagine that someone is a Muslim once, or he was a Zindiq, then he became a kafir, or he left Islam, or became a fasiq, or someone, like a drunk, let's say a drunk fajr house, and there's a mushaf, he happened to have, he's a Muslim, and he happened to have a Quran in his house. Or someone left Islam and there's a Quran left, he goes, I'm like that mushaf, in Baghdad I'm like that. Meaning I got nowhere to go, I'm stuck, I'm imprisoned here, I'm stuck here, like that, and I have no place being here. So anyway, so these Imams were human beings, and they had lives and they had hardships. And one of the Imams, I was reading somewhere that, is like, he had to leave because Basra had to leave, and all the ulama were crying when they were leaving. His students were crying. He said, "There's no food. Like, if I only had like a handful of beans for a day, I would have stayed here. But I have to go to Khurasan to work and live and so forth because it's difficult to." So they had lives, they had families, they had difficulties. They didn't ask anybody for anything. They earned with their own hands, and they did the khidmat of deen. Rahimahullah. May Allah have mercy on all of them. Ibn Abdul Barr, he wrote Al-Kafi. He was a premier alim in his era from Andalus, from the Iberian Peninsula, or Muslim Spain and Portugal. And he wrote two commentaries on Muwatta Imam Malik, At-Tamheed, which is more a hadith analysis, and Al-Istithkar, which is more a fiqh based. Both the commentaries of the same book. Then he came Imam al-Baji, who wrote Muntaqa, and he wrote, he was an Imam in usul and fiqh and hadith, and he traveled the whole Muslim world, east and west and everything. From Spain, he was also from Spain, and he traveled the whole Muslim world and became an authority. And then he came back by the time he came back, this was the era of Ibn Hazm. Ibn Hazm al-Zahiri, Dawood Zahiri was a legitimate Imam, and his school, the Zahiriyah, the literalist. They took everything literally, and they have a whole school attributed, but it died out over time. But their views exist, their books exist. Al-Muhalla is a book of Ibn Hazm, and he used to debate a lot. And I mean, debating is part of our fiqh culture, our jurisprudent culture. A lot of ideas are thrashed out and discussed and so forth in these gatherings. So teachers in the past, they used to teach their students to debate, but these were academic debate, and there was rules for it and mannerisms and so forth. And so we'll mention that he learned hadith and fiqh and debating from such a teacher, or he'd learned fiqh in the manner of debating. So the teachers used to have discussions, views, counter views, proofs for and against a point were discussed. So this is one of the best methodologies of developing a student, a competent student, is to get them to engage in defending their position, countering and opposing position, and so forth. So Ibn Hazm, he used to be famous, and to the point of actually he's discouraged to be read by students, especially in the early studies or while they're in madrasa, because he's so argumentative and he attacks the schools of the four madhabs so harshly sometimes. Unnecessarily. Some of the ulama said it went a bit over the top on many issues. So the one that came, so it was Imam al-Baji is the one who came, traveled the whole world, became Imam, because until he came, the Malikis could not open their mouth in front of him. He was such a good debater, so they couldn't speak in front of him. He used to outdo him. So when he came, Imam Baji came, so the debates that occurred between them. And when Imam Baji rahmallah came, then the Malikiya they took, because Spain at its beginning and end was Maliki basically. Other groups appeared here and there, but mainly the Malikis were predominant in Muslim Spain. So when he came, he gave the Malikiya a leg up, and he established them or re-established them in Spain. Then came the era of Ibn Rushd. He wrote Muqaddamat and Muhaddat, and this is the grandfather. This is Ibn Rushd, the grandson, the philosopher, but the grandfather is the one when it comes to the madhab and detailing the madhab and so forth. He is the one that's been referred to here. He wrote many books and that are relied upon in the madhab. Qadi Iyad, he wrote Mustanbata. Ibn Hajib, he wrote Jamil al-Ummahat, and he wrote a Mukhtasar as well. Al-Qarafi, he wrote Zakhira, which is a book on fiqh, and it's like comparative fiqh between the schools. And he wrote a book on furuq, other science, where masail that look similar but they're different, like deeper analysis of similar looking masail but they're different. Then came the era, the last stage is stabilization and the maturing or establishment of the madhab. The first person in this stage is Khalil. He wrote a Mukhtasar, and this Mukhtasar of Khalil is considered the most important primer in the school, and it's the relied upon, the mu'tamad, or the relied upon position upon which fatwa is given, is this book. Everything after this is in the orbit of this, moves in the orbit of this book. So all the books that are written beyond this is relies upon this important text. Now, he had such an impact that the people said that the Malikis, after should be called the Khaliliyun instead of the Malikiya. They should be called the Khalilis because they follow this book so much. Then came Hattab. He wrote Mawahib al-Jalil, which is a commentary of Khalil Mukhtar's Khalil. Then Dardir, it's also a commentary of that. Dardir wrote a Sharh Kabir, a Sharh of Khalil. Then Dasuqi came and he wrote a Hashia, or a gloss, or notes on the Sharh Kabir, Sharh of Dardir of Khalil. So these are this is only an outline and summary. You can't memorize if you're not from the school and you haven't spent a long time in this madhab, if you're following one madhab or studying one madhab, of course. But it's just to give you enough outline and the main personalities and books and what's important, and to have an appreciation for the great work these Imams did and that we're benefiting from. Because some masalas, a madhab gets stuck and the solution might come from another madhab. And this has happened many times. The Hanafi madhab might refer to the Maliki madhab. So there's certain developments that took in the madhab that the ulama, but that's a very high level, expert level of muftis, senior muftis. That's not something open to the average student knowledge who's still figuring out the ABCs of the schools. The next Imam of the Madhab is Imam Shafi. Imam Shafi rahmatullah was an Imam in his own right, but he was a student of Imam Malik rahmatullah, the one whose Mazhab we just covered. And he took from the school of the Imam Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani, Imam Hanifa rahmatullah, student in Iraq. So Imam Shafi'i rahmatullah, his name was Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i. His lineage meets up with the Prophet ﷺ and his grandfather or great-grandfather Abdul Munaf. He was a Muttalibi, so it doesn't mean that he's from Abdul Muttalib, but from the uncle of Abdul Muttalib. The Prophet ﷺ's grandfather is called Abdul Muttalib because Muttalib, his Abdul Muttalib's uncle, Hashim's brother. Hashim is the great-grandfather of Rasulullah ﷺ. His brother was Muttalib. Abdul Muttalib was raised by Muttalib. But Abdul Muttalib is the slave of Muttalib, meaning that because he was with him and people thought he was his servant or slave. So that's how his name became Abdul Muttalib. So so he's a Muttalibi, Imam Shafi rahimahullah. So his lineage meets up with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His era was from he passed away in the 150 after Hijrah. As we know that many Imams died in that year. He was born in Gaza, present day Palestine. He died in Egypt. There's a suburb called Imam Shafi'i in Egypt, in Cairo. I spent a week there. I was sent to Imam Shafi'i, the suburb. And that's where Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah is. His grave is there, his mosque and so forth. So he was he was born in 150 after Hijrah and he died in 204 after Hijrah. 150 after Hijrah is the year that Imam Hanifa rahimahullah passed away, is the year that Imam is previously mentioned. He traveled to Makkah, Medina, Baghdad. He took the fiqh he synthesized the school of Iraq and the school of Hijaz. There was a competition between the Hijazi school and the Iraqi school. So the Iraqi school said, well, we're the Dar al-Khilafah, Ali radiallahu anhu is here, senior Sahaba like Abdullah Mas'ud radiallahu Ali radiallahu anhu here. And, it was a center of Muslim power and many senior Sahaba were relocated to Iraq, especially during the Khilafah of Ali radiallahu anhu. And the Hijazis, obviously for obvious reasons, Makkah, Medina, and Khulafa Rashideen, Rasulullah ﷺ was there, and Khulafa and Sahaba's children, majority of Sahaba lived in Medina, Makkah, Medina, and their children, grandchildren lived there as well. So there was a competition between them. But Imam Shafi'i is that unique figure. He crossed the line. So he studied from both. He studied Imam Malik. He took from the Shafi'i, from the Medina school, from Makkah school, went to Iraq, studied with Imam, one of the chief students of Imam Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, and he said that I took from Imam Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani, Imam Hanifa's student, a camel load of knowledge. If how much I wrote from him, so he took a large amount of knowledge from Imam Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani rahimahullah. So he systemized the two schools and he brought them closer together. So there was a competition with these two madrasas. His worship and taqwa, Rabi ibn Sulaiman said that Shafi'i used to read the Quran 60 times in Ramadan. Khatam al-Quran. One in the day and one in the night. Hussein Karabisi said, I stayed Imam Shafi'i's one night. He used to pray a third of the night. He would at least read 50 verses and no more than 100 because of the excessive repetition. 50 to 100 verses, not a lot. We used to repeat it so much, spend a third of the night repeating it. It's even Imam Hanifa rahimahullah know that one ayat he read the whole night, repeated the same verse over and over again in Salat. Rabi ibn Sulaiman also said, Rabi ibn Sulaiman is one of the chief students, if not the greatest student Imam Shafi'i, in terms of transmitting in school. He said that he's also the one that transmitted the Risala, the books of Imam Shafi'i, Risala and Kitab al-Umm, the book was dictated to him. He's the one that wrote the book down. So Rabi and Sulaiman said Shafi'i had divided the night into three. The first third he used to write, the second third he prayed, and the last third he slept. In terms of his knowledge and intellect, Ibn Uyayna said Shafi'i was the best of his era, that he was the best alim and imam of the era. Imam Ahmad said no one touched the ink pot and pen except that he is in Imam Shafi'i rahmullah's debt. That any alim that comes afterwards, he owes a debt to Imam Shafi'i rahmullah. And Imam Ahmad rahmullah also said, because he was his ustaz, he says the sun, Imam Shafi'i is like to the world like the sun and well-being, afia, that everybody's in need of him. like everyone needs a son and everyone needs well-being, they're also in debt and they're also in need of Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayhi. He memorized the Quran at the age of 7. He memorized the Muwatta Imam Malik at the age of 10. And Muslim bin Khalid al-Zanji, rahimullah, he qualified him as a mufti at the age of 15. So he was qualified to issue fatwa at the age of 15. And his school is unique in that his school has 2 phases. So they call it the Qadim and Jadid, the old and the new. The latter and the former. It's the 2 phases of the Madhab, which the ulama, which we'll go through inshaAllah ta'ala next week. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us understanding and tawfiq. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.